Okay, now I sit here and hope that people can find their way in here. Hello. All right. It seems like people are figuring out to flow back into here. Oh my gosh, I really do not like when this happens. Interrupts the flow and the everything and whatnot. It makes me wonder if I don't think I can. I don't think I can I don't think it's viable to get the stream off of YouTube since I can, upload all of the videos onto here passively after doing the streams. And this has only been an issue. This specific thing has only been an issue for 2 streams in the last 2-ish months. So, but I'm wondering if getting an actual streaming software would help. And the boy is being the boy. Anyways, I don't want to go. Here's the other thing: is I don't want to go for too much longer since I do have emails as well as the entire other rack to put up. But I also don't want to leave after a bunch of people have just popped up into here. And I had, I was discussing whatever points I was talking about before. Cornflakes. Some eggs came up with the beautiful idea of Lactica dubia cornflakes, which I'm really growing enamored with, and so that may end up being the name. What I'm going to do is after the stream, I'm going to go downstairs and pick up a handful of them and see if my brain will look at them and sort of be like, oh yeah, these are cornflakes. Like if it'll just click, in its entirety in that context. But I really, really like it. It ties together quite a few things. So what I was talking about before was selective breeding some things. And a lot of my projects have been hisser projects. Of course, we have G. grandadiri black, which as time goes on, as more discussion occurs, we suspect that they are not actually grandadiri. They are actually a portentosa. They were mislabeled very, very, very early on into things. Hello, Evan and Carolyn. Thank you for finding your way over here now that we got the issues ironed out. But anyways, so the black tiger hissers have kind of been a project of mine since I received them around 2009 or 2010. It was a very long time ago. 2010, I want to say. I remember at that time, I moved out of what was the bug room in my parents' house. I had already moved into, when my grandma passed, I moved into her old room, which was next to that for a short period of time. And I remember keeping the black tiger hissers when I received them in that room for some period of time. So it would have likely been 2010, but I have been, maybe it was 2009, perhaps. The grandma would have been out of the house in maybe 2009. But anyways, but I do select those fairly regularly. I have always called specimens that were not standard in that colony. And I will brag that I believe my stock is probably the best in terms of consistency of appearance, and I do continue to keep up on culling in them. So anyways, so that but I didn't name that line per se because they came to me as black, so I don't get any sort of accolades there. But anyways, with these other hisser projects, a fair number of them came out of the mahoganies because there was I was doing rounds of selection and continue to do rounds of selection on the mahoganies to get good size individuals with good consistent coloration, which is something that I do for non wild type cultures of things, such as the Cleveland Portentosa. I don't pick out um, this if there's some that are tiny or some that are large. I don't cull the tiny males or anything like that. I let it propagate as it would occur in the wild, which is whatever forces are going to act on them, sexual or environmental, within the enclosure. I just let the genes continue churning and occasionally pick out an individual that I want for a project or something like that. But anyways, so a lot of my Hisser projects lately came out of the mahoganies because I was getting some uh, good variations of individuals in calls and whatnot from certain offset strains of those. Fall at my hands. Oh, you guys are discussing handling some bugs. Anyways, I'll continue to rant about the different Hisser projects. Anyways, so yes, so currently there's three lines of hissers that I have separated off of LLE mahogany. One's the Lilliputians, which are tiny common hissers. They're the same size as or smaller than dwarf hissers than Elliptorhina shepardi. And so that I feel will be quite popular because of the ridiculousness of having really, really tiny hissing cockroaches. From similar stock, again from LLE mahogany, I selected some, and I talked about these before on another stream. I think the project name is Jack-o'-lantern. It'll probably stick. I don't want to call them Halloweens because we already have Halloween hissers in Elliptorhina javanica. I don't want the two of them confused. But Jack-o'-lantern is pretty distinct, or I could call them October or Spooky or something like that. But they have nearly black pronoda and a very pumpkiny, not a dark orange, but a lighter orange colored body. And I really, really like the pair that I picked out. And I was complaining before about how I thought I had cleared the cage of all males when I added the virgin pair back in. And it turns out there was actually one other male, another sibling male that I left in the cage that was not ideal looking. And so I'm very, very mad that I didn't go through and double check, because that pairing, the pairing that I really wanted to happen for sure, was pretty much perfect for how I want the line to end up looking. And so if that other male got in there and got the job done before my perfect male did, I'll be very upset. So, but we'll see, because I can always breed the offspring of the female back to the male and try and cement the phenotype that way. So I think that one will be very popular because of the brightness and contrast of the colors. And finally, another project was, there are some of these mahoganies that end up with sort of spots on their pronoda that remind me of the spots you see on Leuci hermetica. And I'm curious if you could selectively breed to create sort of a glow spot hissing cockroach. There's a lot of similarities in their morphology that I feel could maybe be worked with. So that project I was just calling like spots or something like that, but I will be seeing what can be done to tease that sort of characteristic out of that line. It may be best case scenario we end up with a glow spot looking hissing cockroach. So that's the projects from that were derived from the mahogany genetics. Then straight out of the colony of just Cleveland Portentosa, I grabbed a very large male and a bunch of virgin females to rear up. Evan says wishes he could stick around, but I'm unfortunately busy this evening. Thank you, Evan. See you around. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks again, everyone, for finding this second part to the stream. Anyways, getting on with the Cleveland project out of that. There's not a whole bunch of variation in the Clevelands, I've noticed, probably because my original group was only about like maybe a dozen or 15 from Orin. But there are some subtle pattern and colors that pop up, but there is a good variation of different sizes. And so I grabbed the largest male I could, and I was when Will was here, we spent some time looking at the pronotum sizes to make sure that out of all the big males I selected, that I grabbed the absolute biggest one. And pronotum measurement is a good absolute way to measure, because the body cavity can fill out with whatever they're eating, or as they grow older, they will accumulate more fat, and so they will appear larger overall. But straight out of molting, the pronotum size is a good indicator of the absolute maximum size. So we picked a really good big male to use, and I separated virgin females, and we'll be picking the largest of those females to cross that male and creating the king line, which will be my attempt at breeding gigantic Gramphidorina portentosa, and hopefully those will be quite popular because people like big bugs. Giant roaches are one of the easiest giant bugs to keep, especially hissers. And so having something that's huge and cool and a hisser and not as difficult to propagate as a lot of large beetles will be very popular with a lot of people. And I felt like I could do that with Oblongonota, but I wanted to do it with portentosa because they're just kind of hardier all around. And I feel like pure portentosa need justice done to them. What's your other idea? Some eggs. Blonde or Osage? I like blonde. I feel like the blonde ducky isopods have kind of swiped that terminology from. Have sort of not swiped, but have sort of gained the starlight from that terminology. I do like Osage, but you really got me with cornflakes, because I'm imagining a bowl of these dubias, and it does very vaguely remind me of a, not very vaguely, it is eerily reminiscent of a bowl of cornflakes. So yeah, blonde duckies are a species of Cubaris. They're likely a color phase of whatever the regular duckies are, but they are a different locality of them, as I was told initially. As I was also told, Shiroitsuri was a locality of Nasodillo or Cubaris, when it ended up actually being Nasodillo archangelii, and ended up being a simple recessive Dalmatian selection of that species. It's just a mess. Carolyn, I can't remember what size hissers were in your order. I think you ordered a large pair of portentosa. So I really can't remember what I sent, but they may be adults. Cornflakes is like fitting, like something you gain sustenance from, which references the vigor. Yes. Yes, it does. It's something which your organisms that are feeding on them can gain sustenance from. Blonde ducky isopod. Wow, that would be really over the top of the words there. Blonde ducky isopod dubias. Quite a mouthful. Mouthful, well, or be a mouthful. Cornflakes would be very good too. I was rambling about something. The hissers. Yes, the hissers. So my various size projects, going both smaller and larger, and aiming for some colors and whatnot. And recently, we're on to the F2 of the Elliptorhina javanica cherry project, which is getting a line of just the red pronotum individuals going. And from the crosses that I had, it really seems to me like, I'm trying to think of the ratios I saw in the colony. I want to say that the orange or red pronotum might actually be dominant. If it's that simple, it might actually be dominant. Because the ratios of red to black pronota, or like, not light red but darker, very, very deep, almost black, in the colony was very weird for what I would think from a recessive trait. So I think I have to look at the number and do the Punnett squares or whatever in my head. But anyways, So I did take a couple of the black pronotum ones and isolate them too, because I figured if we're going if it's this easy, if there's such a strong heritable element to this where I could get a very it's very easy to isolate a homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive phenotypes. I might as well go both ways with this line. And so we may end up with a line of all black Leptorhina javanica and a line of all red javanica. The problem with the all black ones, though, is they look very similar to another Elliptorhinus species. And that also makes me wonder about the validity of that species. I want to say it was. It's a pretty name. Cocareliana. Leptorhina cocareliana. So these dark selected Elliptorhina javanica look very, very, very eerily similar to Elliptorhina cocareliana, like almost 1-to-1, which makes me wonder if that species is even valid. So, yeah, we may have some unique phenotypes available soon, and I will be able to lay claim to those names of things. The red is simple dominant will probably be a pain to eliminate the black. Yeah, or with a lot of things, I don't know how true this holds for other organisms, but with a lot of the invertebrates that I've been raising, it seems like a lot of things that are simple recessive and heterozygous things for simple recessive and roaches tend to have a very there's incomplete dominance, and it's very, once you know what to look for, it's a lot easier to spot in a lot of invertebrates for traits. Like with the isopods, how a lot of whiteouts, the heterozygous will either have lighter overall pigmentation or they'll have like a splash of white down their back. So so by picking the best of the best, the most extreme characters for in these color categories, I feel like it would eliminate some of the guesswork of potentially having hets messing stuff up, because the hets would be not ideal to standard visually. So I see Carolyn's learning quite a bit in the chat from some fellow keepers. Like white hairs and rodents that are split for broken color. Yeah, I actually have a batch of het for sure het albino mice right now. I should go and compare them to some of my true breeding wild type lines and see if there's, if that's simple recessive red-eyed white or whatever the formal term is for the albinos. I should look and see if there's incomplete dominance there in some capacity, like the overall coloration is lighter or something like that. It makes sense because like saying something's dominant and recessive is very black and white. When something, the dominant allele is expressing over the recessive one, but it's not like that recessive one is completely not expressing. It's just the characters of the dominant allele are masking it some way. But is it as simple as saying they completely mask it, or do they mask it 99%, or do they mask it 50%? So so we'll see. I might go do that. I have to clean rodents tomorrow anyways. So I don't know if I mentioned the rodents before, but I do have a sizable collection of mice and soft furs. I'd say that right now I'm probably at about 100 soft furs and maybe at about 120-ish mice, maybe more than that if there's been some litters born, maybe up to like 150 mice. And so I just use them for snakes, and I use them for some extra funds from local pet stores that need mice and whatnot. And I have my little breeding projects. The one that I'm working on, my pet project with the mice was I was given some barn mice from a friend who also breeds a lot of stuff. He lives in Ohio. And there's a trait called agouti wild. I'm going to look this up Here we go. I'll link the picture in here actually. I'll link the whole thing. And the one that you're looking for is the white-bellied agouti versus wild-type agouti. Like this here. The mice and the soft furs are all kept in my laundry room actually for easy cleaning and water changing and whatnot. Um, Carolyn, yes, your Ailuropoda insignis are adults. I think the Portentosa you guys just asked for large males, and so I don't know if they were all adults or if they were just large nymphs as well. My softwares are extremely friendly. I can pick them up. I can do all kinds of things with them, and they don't bite me or destroy each other. So I'm very my project with the softwares has been the um, cinnamon jeans, and have also in February picked up some platinums to work on making solid white with black eyes. And then there's a phenotype in softwares that looks like red-eyed white but isn't. It has a very complex name for what it is, but it's a combination of different traits, but it's not simple recessive red-eyed white in domestic stock usually. But they look exactly like a red-eyed white would, but it's a combination of other characteristics. So that's another newer project. But the cinnamons are pretty much proven out. So with the mice, it's the second row of pictures with the wild type agouti, white-bellied agouti, and wild type agouti. And so these wild barn mice have this white-bellied agouti allele. And this is an allele that is not found in all domestic all domestic mouse lines in the United States. It was never bred in when people did their projects, so it's not present. And so I wanted to get these feral, absolutely insane a booty. I keep hearing a booty. I want to get these absolutely wild, insane barn mice domesticated, and so I started crossing them with some domestic mouse lines to breed out the insanity, and it has gone very well. I think I think the project's going on a year and a half now, and I have a very good supply of not psychotic agouti mice with a good number of them, and a couple of lines split off to produce these white-bellied agoutis. As you see in the pictures, it's different than tan and some other of those traits in mice. And so I'm quite proud of having that line and hopefully getting it available for whatever reasons, and then breeding it for feeder production and just to have, and maybe breeding for other characteristics. But there was a reason why my friend really wanted, and he really wanted this trait, but he didn't want to do the work because he has a lot of other projects he's working on. But I was very excited about this. And so, but there was a reason he wanted this allele proven out in a project, and it was, I can't remember what it was, but it's something like if you can create a different phenotype, a very coveted phenotype of mouse using this allele over using the alleles that people usually use, which I think was fox or tan. Or maybe it's if you combine this trait with fox or tan, you get an improved phenotype. And so it was very important to get a true breeding line of this going to get to that goal at some point in the distant future. So, but right now, after a year and a half, there have been some ups and downs with things, primarily with, getting the feralness out of the mice in an efficient manner. But right now, we're at the point where I just need to get the true breeding line going of these white-bellied agouti mice, and so I've got a couple of really good pairs paired up to get those going. Yes, Carolyn, it was a large pair. It's a male and female. I don't have ball pythons actually. I would love. I would love to get some wild type ball pythons out of the bag, like when they have those bag imports. The problem, the last time I contacted somebody a couple of weeks or months ago about getting one of those out of Africa ball python bags because I wanted to purchase a bag and have wild ball pythons or farmed or whatever ball pythons, so they're a natural phenotype. But I wanted to know, where do these come from? Like, can you just tell me a country so that like I know that this is wild ball pythons or farmed ball pythons from this country in Africa? And I didn't get a response. So they're either tight-lipped about that, or they thought that I was wasting their time or something like that. So, but anyways, I would love that if to get one of those ball python bags and know, oh, these are from this country, and that would be very neat for me. I like the wild type look of a lot of domesticated animals, as well as the monstrosities that we've done with them genetically. But I do have a soft spot for the wild types of a lot of things, which is another reason why I like the mice. Is breeding for the wild phenotype in the mice is pretty nifty to me. So, but yeah, on the flip side of that, uh, not being able to get the ball python bags, they have started bringing in boa constrictor imperator from one of the Central American countries that are farm raised or whatever. It's the first time in maybe even 10 years. No, not 10, maybe like somewhere between like 6 and 9 years that they've been bringing in farmed boa constrictor imperators. And so I did buy a female at the last show. The vendor said he was going to get me more information just on the country of origin. I suspect I will not get any more information about it. However, considering the import is happening and multiple vendors had these snakes available, I'm thinking that if I go to there's another vendor who will probably be able to tell me that information, or will have he'll have a better idea to be able to just spout something at me, and I will know that that's factual. So with minimal effort on my part, so I can have just a general idea of where the snakes originally came from. So I really like that. Uh, but anyways, this has been, technical issues aside, this has been a pretty long stream, and I need to get to doing some emails and of course getting the rack up, and I only have so much energy and blah 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 blah, all kinds of Kyle things to say and do. So with that being said, you see anything important or special about next week's stream? Not that I can think of. I would really like to, next week's stream will probably be shorter. I have a very busy week next week, actually, because the 12th I'm working on organizing, facilitating this Canada import thing, getting a bunch of Paraplanida and some other stuff from me. On Friday, packing for an expo that's on Saturday, but on Friday also I'm going with my dad to go see Victor's parents. He wants to meet the dogs, and I want him to see what a full-size Gomper looks like. So we'll be doing that on Friday. And of course, Monday, Tuesday will be packing and shipping days. And then we get into mid-May, and I don't have a lot on the calendar per se, but we're getting to the point where early mid-June is when I'm looking at going to Florida with Kai, at least with Kai, to do a bunch of collecting. I don't think I'm going to need to do it to round out my Aerodavega florensis locales, but I may do it just to be safe and to get some more genetic diversity. Maybe be paranoid and know that I'm starting with for sure stock from each place, although I have absolutely no reason to be. Carolyn, I did not actually make the bones of my website. Was made by somebody else, but WordPress is a very good interface and effective way to sort of manage, and as a good springboard to working on a website. Originally, it was through a company that doesn't exist anymore, but there are plenty of places where you can make a website from scratch with pre-formatted stuff. I'm definitely not. I will learn specific things with code and with site work, like the action trees and stuff, if I absolutely have to. I have at least the brain capacity to do that, but off the top of my head, I am horrible with a lot of that stuff. I have to sit down, get into it, and then I remember it, and I can tell other people about it, but I don't know it off the top of my head. So, but anyways, yes, June trip to Florida, and then eventually a trip to Arizona, Utah, probably Arizona, West Texas in August, and then that will be it for trips for me for a while. And Victor wants some attention, so I think we're going to call the stream there. So, good night, everybody. I'll see you all next week. Thank you for watching despite the technical difficulties. Have a lovely May. The weather's finally getting good. It's supposed to be 80 here in like 2 days. And with that being said, goodbye, and may your cultures ever be ever be bountiful. Be ever bountiful, I suppose. So, goodbye.